Okay, let's dive into something pretty big that's just happened. For the first time, really, in modern American history, a habit that has defined generations is being replaced. We're talking about a fundamental shift in what people use, and a brand new study just put a spotlight on this historic moment.
And boom, here it is in one simple chart. For the very first time, more Americans are now using cannabis than are smoking cigarettes. Look at that. The cannabis bar has officially pulled ahead. This isn't some future prediction. This is the data. It's a crossover that signals a massive change in our country's habits.
So, why is this such a big deal? Well, this isn't just a random online poll. We're talking about a landmark event that's been carefully documented by researchers at SUNY and the University of Kentucky, who've had their eyes on this for years.
What they've given us is probably the most complete picture we've ever had, tracking these trends over almost a decade. They crunched the numbers from huge national surveys to show us, step by step, how we got to this point.
So how exactly did this flip happen? The data tells this really fascinating story of two lines heading in completely opposite directions. This graph really tells you everything you need to know. Just look back at 2015. Cigarette use was way up here. But watch what happens. Year after year, that line just keeps dropping. Meanwhile, the line for cannabis is just steadily climbing, until right around 2022, it happens. They cross paths. That's the historic moment, right there on that chart.
And when you look at the actual numbers, it's even more dramatic. I mean, not that long ago, cigarette use was nearly 4 times higher than cannabis use. But check out the last couple of years. Cannabis use has just taken off, while cigarette use pretty much fell off a cliff. This isn't a slow crawl. This change is picking up speed.
So this brings up the most obvious question, right? Why is this all happening now? Well, the researchers say it's not just one thing, but more like a perfect storm of different factors all coming together.
So what's really going on here? Turns out, it's a mix of changing laws, changing attitudes, and maybe even a few public health victories we didn't see coming.
The study basically points to this perfect storm. You've got state after state legalizing cannabis, which makes it way easier to get and just, more normal. At the exact same time, all those decades of anti-smoking campaigns are really hitting home. You put those two things together, along with the fact that people just see them differently now, and you've got the ideal recipe for a major switch.
And this leads to a really cool idea the researchers are talking about, the substitution effect. Get this, the number of people using both at the same time has stayed pretty much flat. That suggests something huge. People aren't just adding cannabis to their routine. It seems like they're actively swapping their cigarettes for it.
But here's where the story gets another layer. This switch, it's not happening the same way for everyone. When the researchers dug into who is using what, a really clear social and economic divide popped out.
And this slide just lays it all out. The data is pretty stark. Cigarette-only use is now much more common among groups that are socioeconomically disadvantaged. Folks with lower education levels, lower incomes. On the flip side, cannabis-only use is way more prevalent among college-educated and high-income groups. That's a really important social angle to this whole trend.
So yeah, fewer people smoking is a massive public health victory, no doubt about it. But the researchers are now sounding a completely new alarm about where this rapid shift might be taking us. And they don't mince words. This is a direct quote from the paper. They're basically saying that if we don't get ahead of this with smart policies, we could be swapping one major public health problem for a brand new one.
And the key thing to understand is that the risk isn't a simple thing. The researchers make it super clear. The danger totally depends on how it's used. We're talking about the method, the unbelievable potency of some products today, how often people are using it. All these things create a really complex and potentially risky situation. So to get in front of this, they're proposing a clear 3-part game plan. First, real, honest public health education about the risks. Second, creating better ways to spot problematic use early on. And third, actually developing treatments that work. It's all about trying to prevent this from becoming the next big challenge.
Which leaves us with this one final, really critical question. The decline of smoking, that's a win that took decades of work. But as we watch these two lines cross on the chart, you have to wonder, as one public health crisis finally starts to fade, are we just watching a new one get started?